The warning was not a threat. That is the thing I have spent the rest of my life trying to make my people understand, and the thing they have never been able to hear, because it does not fit the shape of the galaxy as we were taught it. We thought Earth was warning us to frighten us. We thought it was a bluff, the desperate bluff of a minor world hoping to scare off a Dominion fleet. It was none of those things. The warning Earth gave us was the most honest thing anyone has ever said to my people, and it was given to save our lives, and we could not understand it, because we had never in our history met anyone who would warn an enemy in order to spare them. We heard mercy and called it a bluff. We crossed the line we were begged not to cross. And 40,000 of my people died for it, in the space of a single descent through a stranger's sky, and I am the only one who lived. Because the people we came to conquer pulled me out of the fire, we forced them to light. Let me tell you who I am, because every account of this you have heard was written by people who were not there, and they have it wrong, all of them, in the same way. They tell it as a triumph, Earth's triumph, or, on my side, as a massacre, an atrocity, a thing done to us. It was neither. It was a tragedy, the specific kind of tragedy that happens when one people offer mercy in a language another people cannot read. And I was there in the middle of it, and I lived, and so the truth is mine to tell, and I have told it on 100 worlds since, and I will tell it to you now. My name is Vael, and I am Sarn. The Sarn Dominion, you may know us or know of us, a conqueror people from the deep galaxy, an old and successful empire built on a single doctrine that had never failed us until Earth. I want to explain the doctrine because the doctrine is why we died. The Sarn did not conquer the way other empires conquered, with long campaigns and sieges and negotiated surrenders. We conquered by overwhelming first contact. It was our whole art. When the Dominion marked a world for absorption, we did not threaten it from orbit or open negotiations or lay a siege. We landed. In overwhelming force, all at once, directly into the heart of the target world. A massive descent, thousands of landers, tens of thousands of troops, materializing out of the sky onto the world's surface in a single overwhelming hour. So much force so suddenly that resistance became unthinkable before it could organize. That was the Sarn way. We did not defeat our enemies. We arrived so completely that defeat was never on the table. A world woke up one morning a free world and went to sleep that night a Dominion world, the conquest accomplished in the hours between, by the sheer overwhelming fact of our arrival. It had worked for 1,000 years. It had never once failed. We were very proud of it. I was not a soldier. I want you to understand that because it matters to what I saw and what I felt and what I became. I was a physician, a military physician, a Dominion field surgeon attached to the descent forces. My function was to keep our troops alive, to follow the landing and tend the wounded, the few wounded our overwhelming doctrine ever produced. It was, in truth, a quiet posting. The Sarn way of war did not generate many casualties, because there was rarely a real fight. We arrived too completely for there to be a fight. In 10 years as a descent surgeon, I had seen more injuries from landing accidents than from enemy action. I had chosen medicine because, even among a conqueror people, I had wanted to be the one who healed rather than the one who harmed. A small private dissent I never spoke aloud, because the Sarn did not honor healers the way they honored warriors, and I had learned to keep my softness to myself. I tell you this so you understand that when the warning came, there was at least one being in that fleet who was prepared by temperament to hear it, and even I could not hear it. That is how completely the doctrine had us. Even the healer among us heard mercy and could not recognize it. Let me tell you about Earth, as we approached it, because the approach matters, and because the thing that happened could only have happened the way it did because of what Earth was. Earth had been marked for absorption in the routine way, a young species, a cluster of worlds, resources the Dominion wanted, a target like 100 targets before it. Our intelligence rated Earth as minor and the conquest as routine. A standard descent, a single descent fleet, some 40,000 troops and thousands of landers, sufficient by our doctrine to absorb a minor world in an afternoon. The fleet I was attached to translated into the Earth system and began its approach to the target world, and I remember my first sight of it on the medical bay's display. A blue and white world, beautiful, cloud-wrapped, turning slowly beneath us, utterly unaware, we assumed, of what was about to descend upon it. We assumed Earth did not even know we were coming. That was usually how it went. The overwhelming descent worked precisely, because the target rarely saw it coming in time. But Earth saw us coming, and Earth hailed us while we were still in high orbit before we had begun the descent, and the hail is the thing this whole story turns on, the thing I have repeated 10,000 times since, the warning that we could not hear. The human transmission came through to the command deck, and because I was senior medical staff I was on the command channel, and so I heard it directly in the human voice before the translators had even finished rendering it. The voice was calm. It was not afraid. I noted that even then with the small part of me that noticed things, it was not the voice of a frightened world. But it was not arrogant either, not the cold confidence of a power sure of its strength. It was something I had no category for, something that I would only understand much later. It was the voice of someone who did not want to do a terrible thing and was hoping, sincerely hoping, that they would not be made to. The human voice said, "Sarn Fleet, this is Earth. We know who you are. We know your doctrine. We know you mean to land in force all at once, the way you've taken 1,000 worlds. We're transmitting this in the clear so there's no possibility of misunderstanding. And we're going to be as plain as we can because what we're about to tell you is the most important thing anyone will ever say to you, and we need you to actually hear it." A pause. "Do not enter our atmosphere. We are not threatening you. Please understand that this is not a threat. This is a warning, and the difference matters more than you can possibly know right now. We have a defense. It is automatic and it covers our atmosphere, and once it engages we cannot call it back. Not slow it, not stop it, not save anyone caught inside it. It does not negotiate and it does not take prisoners, and it cannot be switched off once a hostile force crosses into the air of our world. We did not build it because we wanted it. We built it because we are small and the galaxy is full of empires like yours, and it was the only way to be sure no one could ever take our home. We have never had to use it. We are begging you, and I want that word on the record, begging, not to make us use it now. Stay in orbit. Talk to us. There is nothing you want that we cannot find another way to settle. But do not cross into our atmosphere, because if you do, we cannot save you and we do not want your deaths. Please. This is the only warning we can give because it is the only one there is. After this, there is only the line, and the line does not forgive." And the command deck of the Sarn descent fleet was silent for a moment. And then my people did the thing that killed them, the thing I have never been able to forgive us for, not because it was evil, but because it was so stupid, so blind, so completely a product of everything we were. They laughed. They laughed because they could not hear what had been said. They heard a minor world claiming to have a superweapon. They heard a bluff, the oldest bluff, the desperate invention of a weak world hoping to frighten off a stronger one. They heard, "We have a defense you cannot survive," and they translated it instantly, through the lens of 1,000 years of overwhelming victory, into, "We are afraid and we are trying to scare you." Because in the entire history of the Sarn Dominion, no one had ever warned us off and meant it. No world had ever possessed a defense we could not overwhelm, and the doctrine had never failed. The commander, a Sarn named Kor Arabic Thet, a veteran of 40 conquests, dismissed the warning with the contempt of the very confident. "A bluff," he said. "A clever one perhaps, but a bluff. Worlds did not have weapons that could destroy a Dominion descent fleet. If Earth had such a weapon, it would have used it, not warned us. The warning itself was proof of weakness, proof that Earth had nothing but words. We would descend as we always descended, and Earth would learn, as 1,000 worlds had learned, that there is no defense against the Sarn way." I said nothing. That is my share of the guilt, and I carry it. I was the healer, the one being aboard who might have heard the thing in that human voice, the sincerity, the grief, the begging, and I heard it. Some part of me heard it, and I said nothing, because I was junior and afraid, and because even the soft one, could not truly believe that a minor world held death enough to destroy us all. I told myself it was a bluff, because everyone said it was a bluff, because the doctrine had never failed. And the order was given, and the descent began, and 40,000 Sarn and thousands of landers began to fall toward the blue and white world that had begged us, in the clear, on the record, not to come. Let me tell you what happened when we crossed the line. Let me tell you what Earth's warning meant, and what it was, and how it felt to fall through a stranger's sky toward a mercy we had spat upon, and how I, alone of 40,000, came to be pulled living from the fire, by the hands of the very people whose warning we had laughed at, who wept as they saved me, because they had never wanted to kill us at all. We fell toward Earth in our thousands, and for the first minutes it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and I think about that often, that the last thing 40,000 of my people saw was beauty, the blue curve of a living world coming up to meet us, the white clouds parting, a stranger's sky opening like a door. We did not know we were falling into the only mistake that mattered. We thought we were falling into another conquest. The landers around me were full of confident troops, joking on the comms, veterans of the overwhelming descent, and I sat among them with my surgeon's kit, and felt the small, useless dread I always carried and told myself, as I always told myself, that it was nothing, that the doctrine had never failed. Let me tell you about the line, because the line is the whole story, and the humans had told us exactly where it was, and we crossed it laughing. Earth's warning had been specific. Do not enter our atmosphere. Stay in orbit. The line was the edge of the air itself, the boundary between the dead black of space and the living sky of the world, and the humans had told us plainly that their defense covered the atmosphere, that it engaged when a hostile force crossed into the air, that once we crossed there was no calling it back. They had drawn the line for us in words as clear as words can be, and we crossed it. The descent fleet fell out of orbit and down toward the surface, and at a certain altitude, I felt it, we all felt it, a change in the lander as we bit into the first thin edge of atmosphere. We crossed from space into sky, from the black into the blue, and we were, every one of us, on the wrong side of the line the humans had begged us not to cross. And for a moment nothing happened, and in that moment the commander's voice came over the fleet channel, triumphant, mocking, "You see, a bluff. There is no weapon, there is no defense. There is only another world about to learn the Sarn way. Descend." And the troops cheered, and the landers fell faster, and I felt in the pit of myself a relief so enormous it shamed me, relief that it had been a bluff after all, that the begging human voice had been a lie, that we would not die, that the soft thing in me that had almost believed the warning had been wrong. For one moment I was glad we had not listened. For one moment I was a Sarn like all the others, falling toward an easy conquest, certain of victory. Then the line answered. I will not pretend to understand what Earth's defense was. I am a physician, not an engineer, and even our engineers afterward could not fully explain it, and I have come to believe that the not explaining is part of the point, that the humans had built something they themselves regarded with a kind of horror, a defense so total that they had hoped never to use it and warned us, sincerely, to spare us from it. I can only tell you what it was like, from inside a falling lander, to be on the wrong side of the line when it engaged. It was not an attack the way I understood attacks. There was no enemy fleet, no soldiers, no weapons fired in the way weapons are fired. It was the sky itself. The moment the defense engaged the atmosphere of Earth, the air we had crossed into, the air the humans had warned us covered, became, all at once, lethal. I felt it before I understood it. The landers around us beginning to fail, not from any visible weapon but from the air itself turning against everything that did not belong to Earth. A defense woven into the very atmosphere of the world, automatic and total, and utterly without mercy, because it had been built to be exactly that. the last defense of a small people who could not afford to lose, a thing that did not negotiate and did not stop and could not tell a soldier from a surgeon, could not tell a conqueror from a healer, could only tell that we were not of earth and that we had crossed the line. The humans had told us, it does not take prisoners, it cannot be switched off. We did not believe them. And now we were inside it, 40,000 of us, falling through a sky that was killing us, and there was no calling it back. Exactly as they had said, because they had not been bluffing, they had never been bluffing. They had been telling us the simple, terrible truth and begging us to spare ourselves, and we had laughed. The fleet died in minutes. I want to be honest about it without dwelling on the horror of it, because the horror is not the point of this story. The point is what came after, but you must understand the completeness of it. The overwhelming descent, the doctrine that had never failed in 1,000 years, was annihilated in the time it takes to fall from the edge of the sky to the ground. Lander after lander failing, the proud, confident troops, the veterans, the commander who had called it a bluff, gone, all of them, gone into the sky they had been warned not to enter. 40,000 Sarn. The most complete defeat in the history of the Dominion, and it was not even a battle. There was no one to fight. There was only the line, and the line did not forgive, exactly as we had been told. My lander did not fail at once. I do not know why, some quirk of our descent angle, some fraction of a second's difference, the blind luck that decides who lives. My lander failed slowly, wounded by the sky, tumbling, its systems dying, and it did not annihilate the way the others did but fell, broken, trailing fire, down through the killing air toward the surface of the world, and I was inside it, the surgeon, strapped into my place among troops who were already dying around me, and I remember. This is the last clear thing I remember from the descent. I remember tending them. Even then. Even falling, even dying, even inside the catastrophe our own blindness had made. I unstrapped and I went to the dying troops around me, and I did the only thing I had ever known how to do, the thing I had chosen over the warrior's path, the thing that was the small private descent of my whole life. I tried to help them. I could not. They were beyond help, and so was I, and the world was coming up to meet us. But I died. I thought I was dying, doing the thing I had always wanted to be, the healer and not the conqueror, and there is a mercy in that the last thing I did as my people fell was the one Sarn thing I had never been ashamed of. And then the lander struck the surface of Earth, and the fire took me, and I should have died, and I did not. I woke, and this is where the true story begins, the story no one tells, the story I lived and the history's erased. I woke to human hands pulling me out of the fire. I did not understand it. I have had years to understand it, and I am still not sure I do. The defense had killed 40,000 of us. The humans had every reason to let the last broken lander burn with its dying crew. We had ignored their warning, laughed at their mercy, fallen on their world to conquer it. By every law of the galaxy I knew, by the Sarn law I had been raised in, the humans should have let me die, or killed me themselves, the last enemy of an invasion they had just annihilated. Instead, there were human hands in the fire, pulling me out. Rescue teams. I understood later, human rescue teams who had come to the crash sites, not to finish survivors but to save them, moving through the wreckage of the fleet that had come to destroy them, looking for anyone still alive to pull from the flames. And they found me, and they pulled me out. And the first human face I ever saw clearly was the face of a rescue worker, a woman, soot-streaked and exhausted and grieving. I could see the grief on her, even through my pain, even across the strangeness of an alien face. I could see that she was grieving, and she pulled me from the fire of my own lander, and she held me, the enemy, the conqueror, the last of 40,000 who had come to take her world, and she said, the translators gave it to me later, but I heard the tone of it then in the moment. And the tone was the thing she said, I've got you, you're alive, we're not going to let you die, I'm so sorry, we told you, we begged you not to come, I'm so sorry, we begged you not to come. The people we had come to conquer, the people whose warning we had laughed at, The people whose sky had just killed 40,000 of my own were grieving for us, were apologizing to us, were pulling the last of us from the fire with their own hands and weeping over us, and saying they were sorry, sorry that we had not listened, sorry that we had made them use the thing they had begged us to spare them from. I did not understand it. In the whole framework of the galaxy that had made me, it was not a thing that could happen. The victor does not grieve the vanquished. The conquered world does not weep over the invader. And yet there I was, alive in the arms of the enemy I had come to destroy, and the enemy was sorry, and the sorrow was real, and it broke something in me that has never healed and that I would not heal if I could, because the breaking was the beginning of my becoming something better than I had been. But I have run ahead of myself, because there is more to what happened on the ground than my rescue, and the more is the heart of why this was the Dominion's last mistake. Not because 40,000 died, terrible as that was, but because of what the surviving Dominion learned and refused to learn, and what the humans did next, and what I carried back to my people. Let me tell you what happened in the days after the fire, when the Sarn Dominion learned that its descent fleet was gone, and demanded to know how, and sent, because the Dominion could not imagine any other response, a second fleet. Let me tell you about the second warning, and what the humans did when the empire that had been warned once came back to be warned again. The humans did not let me die, and they did not imprison me, and they did not interrogate me as a Sarn would have interrogated a captured enemy. They healed me. For a long time in a human medical facility with human physicians, and I, a physician myself, watched them work on me with a professional eye even through my grief, and I will tell you what I saw because it told me everything about the people we had so badly misjudged. I saw that they treated me, the enemy, the conqueror, exactly as they treated their own. There was no difference in their care. The same urgency, the same gentleness, the same refusal to give up on a difficult case. They did not heal me coldly, as a source of information, or grudgingly, as a duty. They healed me the way they would have healed anyone, because to them, a wounded being was a wounded being, and the question of whose side I had been on simply did not enter into whether I deserved to be saved. I had never seen medicine practiced that way. Among the Sarn, even our healing was hierarchical, rationed by rank and worth. The humans healed me as if I were worth exactly as much as anyone, which is to say infinitely, which is to say without calculation at all. It undid me. I had come to conquer these people, and they were teaching me with their hands on my own broken body, a thing about the worth of a life that my whole conqueror's civilization had never learned. And while they healed me, the Dominion came back. I learned of it from the human physicians, who told me plainly, because the humans I was learning did not hide hard truths from the people they cared for. The Sarn Dominion had registered the loss of its descent fleet, 40,000 troops gone, against a world-rated minor, and the Dominion had responded in the only way the Dominion knew how to respond, the way its whole nature demanded. It had not asked what happened. It had not wondered whether the warning might have been true. It had not paused to reconsider a doctrine that had just suffered the worst defeat in its history. It had simply concluded that something had gone wrong, that a minor world had somehow gotten lucky or cheated, and that the answer, the only answer the Dominion could conceive, was more force. A second fleet, larger than the first, sent to do properly what the first had somehow failed to do, to absorb Earth and avenge the descent fleet and restore the doctrine that could not be allowed to fail. The Dominion was coming back to Earth, in greater strength, to cross the line again. And I lay in that human medical bay, healing, and I understood, with a clarity that was its own kind of agony, that a second 40,000 were about to die. More than 40,000. And that they would die exactly as the first had died, for exactly the same reason, because the Dominion had learned nothing, because the Dominion could not learn, because the doctrine of overwhelming force has no mechanism for the possibility that force is not the answer. My people were going to fall into the same fire, and I was the only Sarn alive who knew it was a fire and not a bluff, and I was lying in an enemy hospital, healing, while it happened. I did the only thing I could do. I went to the humans, and I begged them to let me warn the Second Fleet. I want to tell you about that, because it is the moment my becoming was completed, and because of what the humans said. I went to the human commander, a woman named Sarah Okonkwo, who oversaw the response to the invasion and who came to speak with me when I asked, came herself, the commander of a world, to speak with a single enemy survivor in a hospital bed. And I told her that the Dominion would not understand, that they never understood that they would cross the line again and die again, a Second Fleet, and that I could not bear it, that I had to try to warn them. That I had to make my own people hear what I had heard too late, and I expected, Sarn, that I still was, in part, I expected her to refuse, to see my warning as a risk, a trick, a way for the enemy to gain advantage. I expected the calculation that any Sarn commander would have made. Why would I help the surviving enemy communicate with the incoming enemy fleet? She did not make that calculation. She looked at me and she said, "You want to warn them, to save them. The people who came to conquer us and who are coming again, you want to stop them from dying." She was quiet a moment. "Of course you do. You're a doctor. Saving people who are about to die is the whole of what you are, even when they're your own foolish people, even when they came to hurt us. I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to help you. Because the thing you have to understand about us, the thing your Dominion will never understand, the thing that got your fleet killed, is that we never wanted any of this. We didn't want to kill the First Fleet. We don't want to kill the second one. We would give almost anything not to have to use that defense again, because every time it engages, 40,000 someones die, and they're all someones, all of them, even the ones who came to take our home. So yes, warn them. Use our transmitters, use our frequencies, tell them whatever you think might make them hear it. And I'll tell you something else." Her voice dropped. "If you can make even one of those ships turn around, you'll have saved more lives than any warrior in your Dominion's whole bloody history. Because the bravest thing in the universe isn't conquering a world. It's stopping a war that everyone else thinks is inevitable. Go, try. We'll give you every tool we have." And the humans did. They gave me their transmitters, their frequencies, every tool they had, and they let me, the enemy survivor, broadcast to the incoming Dominion fleet, to beg my own people, in my own voice, with the authority of the only Sarn who had crossed the line and lived, to turn around. I broadcast for a day as the Second Fleet approached. I told them everything. I told them I was Vael, field surgeon of the Lost Descent Fleet, the only survivor, and that I was alive because the humans had pulled me from the fire and healed me. I told them the warning had been true, that Earth's defense was real, automatic, total, that it had killed 40,000 of us in minutes, that it could not be bluffed or fought or overwhelmed, that the doctrine had finally met the thing it could not absorb. I told them the humans did not want to kill us, that they had begged us not to come, that they were begging again through me, that they would rather settle anything by talk than use the defense even once more. I begged my own people with everything I had, with the authority of a survivor and the desperation of a healer, to stay out of the atmosphere, to talk, to live. "Turn around," I said. "I have seen the fire. You cannot survive it. No one can. Turn around and live, and let us find another way, because the humans will find another way. They have offered it. They are better than we are, and they are offering us a chance to be better too. Turn around, please. I am the only one who lived. Do not make me watch you all die a second time." And I want to tell you what the Dominion did, because it is the last and deepest tragedy of this whole story, and it is the thing that made Earth the Dominion's last mistake, in a sense larger than 40,000 deaths. Most of the fleet did not turn around. The command of the Second Fleet heard my broadcast and concluded, as the Dominion always concluded, as the doctrine required them to conclude, that I was compromised, a traitor, a prisoner broken by the enemy, made to read their propaganda, my warning a human trick to weaken the Dominion's resolve. They did not believe me, because believing me meant believing that the doctrine had truly failed. That force was not always the answer. that a survivor's grief was worth more than 1,000 years of victory, and the Dominion could not believe those things and remain the Dominion. So the command pressed on, toward the line, toward the fire, dismissing the one voice that could have saved them as the broken lie of a coward who had let himself be captured rather than die. But not all of them. That is the thing I hold on to, the small light in the whole catastrophe. Some of the ships turned around. Some of the captains of the Second Fleet heard my voice, the voice of one of their own, a survivor begging, and something in them, some buried thing the doctrine had not fully killed, made them hesitate, made them listen, made them break formation and turn away from the line. Not many, a handful of a great fleet. But they turned and they lived, and the lives of those crews are the only thing I have ever done that I am truly proud of, because they prove the thing the humans believed and the Dominion denied, that even in a people built for conquest, even under a doctrine that had never failed, there are some who can hear mercy when it is spoken to them clearly, who can choose, against everything they were made to be, to turn around and live. The rest of the Second Fleet crossed the line, and the line answered, as it had answered before, as the humans had begged it would not have to. And a second host of my people died in the killing sky of Earth, and the humans grieved again, and sent their rescue teams again into a second field of fire, and pulled out what survivors they could, and wept over them. And I watched it all from the ground this time, standing beside the humans, a Sarn among the people my people had twice tried to destroy. And I understood at last the full shape of what the title of this story calls the Dominion's last mistake. It was the last mistake not because the Dominion was destroyed. It was not as a power. It survived, chastened, diminished, but it survived. It was the last mistake because it was the last time the Dominion could pretend that force was the answer to everything. After Earth, after 2 fleets fell into a sky they had been begged not to enter, after a survivor's warning was dismissed as treason, after the humans grieved for the very people who came to conquer them, the doctrine of overwhelming first contact was finished, not defeated, discredited, shown in the most total way imaginable, to be the thing that gets your people killed against an enemy that does not play by the rules of force. The Dominion that came home from Earth was a Dominion that could no longer believe in its own central truth, and a conqueror people who can no longer believe in conquest is a people who must, at last, learn something else. And that is the last part of the story, what the Dominion learned, and what I became, and what the humans did when it was all over, when the fleets had fallen and the line had answered, and the terrible necessary defense had done its terrible necessary work. Let me tell you what the people of Earth said to the Sarn Dominion at the very end, the people who had been warned and forced twice to kill, and how the most merciful thing they did was not the healing, and not the grieving, and not even the saving of one foolish field surgeon from the fire. Let me tell you the last thing the humans did, the thing that turned the worst mistake in Dominion history into the beginning of the only good road my people ever walked. When it was over, when the Second Fleet had fallen, when the line had answered for the last time, when the rescue teams had pulled the last survivors from the last field of fire, the Sarn Dominion finally did the thing it should have done at the very beginning. It went quiet and it listened, because there was nothing else left to do. 2 fleets were gone. The doctrine was ash. The Dominion that had conquered for 1,000 years by the certainty of overwhelming force had met a world it could not overwhelm, had been warned away twice and refused twice and paid in tens of thousands of lives. And now, at last, with its central truth in ruins, it had no choice but to do the one thing conquerors never do, which is to ask, what do they want from us? And it opened a channel to Earth. The Dominion did, humbled in a way it had never been humbled, and it asked the humans to name their terms. And the humans' answer is the last thing I will tell you, because it is the greatest thing, greater than the defense, greater than the healing, greater even than the grief. It is the thing that made Earth not the Dominion's destroyer, but, impossibly, its redeemer. Commander Okonkwo spoke for Earth, and the Dominion braced, as I braced, standing beside her, a Sarn on a human world for the terms of the defeated, reparations, submission. The surrender of worlds, the payment of tribute, the 1,000 humiliations that the Sarn themselves had imposed on 1,000 conquered peoples, and that we now expected by the iron law of the galaxy to have imposed on us in turn. That is what victory meant in the galaxy that had made us. The victor takes. We had taken for 1,000 years. Now we would be taken from. It was just, we expected it. The humans did not take anything. Commander Okonkwo said, "Here are our terms, we want nothing from you. No reparations, no tribute, no worlds, no submission. We didn't fight you to take anything from you. We fought you because you came to take something from us, and now that you've stopped, the fighting's over and there's nothing left to settle by force. So we're not going to. Here's the only thing we want, and it isn't a demand because you can't demand this kind of thing, you can only offer it. We want you to stop. Not just here, everywhere. We want you to stop being a people who solve the problem of other people by landing on them in overwhelming force. Not because we'll punish you if you don't, we won't chase you, we won't conquer you, we won't do to you what you did to others. But because you've just learned at a terrible price the thing we've always known, that force isn't strength. That landing on a world to make resistance unthinkable isn't power. It's just a habit. A 1,000-year-old habit that finally met a world it couldn't break, and got 40,000 of your people killed twice over because your doctrine couldn't imagine being wrong. She paused. You lost 2 fleets to us. We grieve them. I want you to know that we actually grieve your dead, which I don't think you can understand yet, but you will. And the only way to make those deaths mean anything other than waste is to let them be the last. So that's our terms. Stop. Become something else. We'll help you if you want help. We'll show you everything we know about how to live in the galaxy without conquering it, and we'll stand with you the way we'd stand with anyone, and we'll treat you, from this day, not as the enemy who attacked us, but as a people who made a terrible mistake and are capable of learning from it. That's the offer. The only price of peace with Earth is that you stop needing to conquer to feel safe. Pay that, and you'll find we're the best friends your Dominion ever had." And the Sarn Dominion, which had come twice to conquer Earth and twice fallen into its sky, wept. I do not have another word for it. A conqueror people, humbled past the possibility of pride, heard the world they had attacked offer them not vengeance but a hand, not tribute but help, not submission but the chance to become something better. And the thing in us that 1,000 years of conquest had buried, the thing the human rescue worker had touched when she pulled me from the fire and wept over me, that thing rose up in my whole people at once, and we understood, finally, what we had attacked, and what it had offered us, and what we had nearly thrown away in our blindness. We took the offer, of course we took it. What people shown that road, having walked the other one to its end in fire, would not take it. The Sarn Dominion stopped, not all at once and not easily. 1,000 years of conquest is not unlearned in a season, but it stopped. The doctrine of overwhelming descent was abolished, struck from our practice, taught now only as a warning, the thing that got 2 fleets killed against the one world that would not break. And the Sarn became, slowly, painfully, over the years that followed, something we had never been. A people who lived in the galaxy without landing on it, who settled their disputes with words because force had been shown to us, in fire, to be the weaker way. Earth kept its promise. The humans helped us. They showed us everything they knew, and they stood with us, and they treated us, the enemy who had twice come to destroy them, as friends, because they had decided, somewhere in their strange and stubborn hearts, that what we had been mattered less than what we could become. And I went home, eventually. Vael, the field surgeon, the only survivor of the First Fleet, the voice that had begged the Second to turn around and saved a handful who listened. I went home to a Dominion that was learning to be something new, and I found that I was no longer the soft one who had to hide his healer's heart, because the whole Dominion was learning now that the healer's heart had been right all along, that the one of us who had wanted to mend rather than break had understood, before any of the warriors, the thing it cost 2 fleets to teach the rest. I spent the rest of my life as a physician, but not a military one. There was no more military, not in the old sense. A physician of a people learning to heal instead of conquer. And I told this story on 100 worlds of the Change Dominion to anyone who would listen, because I had promised myself, in the arms of the human who pulled me from the fire, that I would make my people understand the thing we had so nearly died never knowing. The Empire was warned. We entered Earth's atmosphere anyway, and it was our last mistake, but not in the way the title means it, not in the way the histories tell it. It was not our last mistake because Earth destroyed us. Earth could have destroyed us twice over and chose instead to grieve us and heal us and offer us a better road. It was our last mistake because it was the last time we believed the lie that had ruled us for 1,000 years. That strength is the power to make others submit. Earth taught us, in fire and in mercy both, the truth that unmade that lie forever, that the strongest thing in the galaxy is not a fleet that can conquer a world, but a people who can destroy you and weep while they do it, who warn you to spare you and grieve you when you will not be spared, and who, when you lie broken and defeated and at their mercy, reach into the fire you force them to light and pull you out and heal you and offer you a hand, and ask nothing in return but that you stop needing to conquer. We were warned, we did not listen. 40,000 died, and 40,000 more, because we could not tell the difference between a threat and a mercy, between a people who wanted to frighten us and a people who were begging to spare us. I learned the difference. It cost me everything I was, and it gave me everything I became. And I have spent my life since making sure my people never forget it, that the deadliest power in the universe is not the one that conquers without mercy. It is the one that could conquer and chooses mercy instead, and grieves, with its whole heart, the lives it was forced to take by those too blind to accept the gift of being spared. The humans never wanted to kill us. That is the whole story. They warned us, and we would not hear it, and they wept as their sky took our fleets, and then they pulled the last of us from the fire and called us friend. That was their answer to an empire that came to conquer them. And it is the only answer that has ever, in the whole long history of the stars, actually ended a war instead of merely winning one.